Don't some of them also have it set to, like the ones with the flexes, tell the radio stop transmitting and then it disconnects the antennas when it sees a strike within a radius?
Well, you can set the logic up for that. Correct. Yeah. So the logic would be you're pulling all that data, it flashes red and it turns a bit on or says is lightning closer than 150, and if, that parameter turns to yes, then you've got another flow that is checking that parameter, and then it just automatically disconnects your antenna. But you don't want to, do it, right in the middle of a minute QSO, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, right. So, you need to check, the thing would be you check to see if the flex is transmitting. If that is true, then wait, there's a whole bunch of if then. It's just a bunch of if then else statements.
Right. Because you definitely don't want to drop the antenna, especially if you've got an amplifier running.
Right. Exactly.
So, all right. I just got a message. We got at least a couple others logging in, and then we'll get started. So, but yeah, it's, it's amazing. I'm just looking to do something simple, and then I see these guys that are going crazy, and they've got all the remote controlled power switches.
Yeah.
And everything. And it's like,
It's it gets pretty intense real fast. Like Dave DeCoons, WO2X, man, he is. There's just not enough hours in the day.
No, I've seen some of the stuff he's talking about. It's like,
yeah. I've gotten on personal Zooms with him, and I'm just like, Dave, hang on, slow down. I'm not following you.
Yeah. So yeah, I know it's it's. If you at the simplest level, it's kind of an object-oriented programming thing, but then there's also those that really go deep into everything behind it, and it's like,
yeah. There's a level of, okay, I'm gonna get Node-RED up and running, and I'm gonna import a flow, but the real challenge becomes whenever that flow doesn't import correctly, or you have to change some parameters and you don't have any programming experience, then you're kind of just like you're a fish out of water, and you're just like, well, how do I get this working? And that's where the frustration comes in with some of these guys. They wanted a plug and play solution, and Node-RED sometimes isn't that plug and play.
Right. All right. Well, I guess we can get started. I don't know how many are going to join us later, but like I said, I am recording, so I know there's quite a few who were traveling this weekend. So, good evening, Christian. Hey. And Tavis, and good evening, Kent. Our guest tonight is Kyle Krieg, who is, he's got a YouTube channel. He does ham stuff. And he is also big into the Node-RED programming automation language. He's got I took a series of online training classes to learn how to set it up and get started in it. But yeah, and you can go back and you can watch those, but he knows a lot. But as we were just discussing, there's guys on the group's IO list who are just crazy into this. You can, it can be as simple as you want or really nutty. And Christian, I really think this is something Tavis might get into. And it runs on a Pi, provided you can find one. Right. So I'm going to turn this over to Kyle, and I'm going to
can you let me share?
Hang on, let me make you co-host.
Okay.
And then that will allow you to share, and I will also spotlight you for everybody.
Okay.
So take it over. It's all yours.
All right. So let me share number 3 here. So let me pull this over. Let's see. Slideshow. All right. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. Intro to Node-RED. Everyone can see that, right? Okay. So this slideshow, actually, it's probably 3 slideshows based on how much questions we have, how many, how fast I get through this. I've tried to pare this down to just kind of give the facts and not do a lot of just talking here. And hopefully you'll come out of this with a deeper understanding about Node-RED and what it's all about. So let's get up and running here. So what is Node-RED? So it's a flow-based programming tool. Now, don't get hung up on programming tool, because I'm not a programmer, but I was able to figure out pretty much a lot of these things. So don't get hung up on programming here. It's built on Node.js, which is JavaScript, and it's open source, so anybody can download it. It's all free. It runs on basically anything that has an operating system: Windows, Mac, Linux, Raspberry Pi. My presentation is going to be more geared towards the Raspberry Pi aspect. That's what I've got the most experience with. But you can run it on Windows, Mac, Linux. If I were you, I would make sure that I ran it on something that you were going to run 24/7, because it just works better that way whenever you just have it up and running all the time. The nice thing it does is it removes all the boilerplate code to allow quick programming. So what I mean by that is, back in the day, I think, since I'm not a programmer, if you wanted to build like a TCP IP stack, or you wanted to connect some two things together, you had to like make this whole connection programming thing and pull down some stuff from the internet and do some other things. Today, you basically load these nodes, and there's a TCP node, there's a DHCP, or there's a UDP node, and you pull it over into your palette and you configure a couple of parameters, and it's done. It opened up a port, and it's listening on that port, or it's sending information out. So all of that back end stuff that was hard to program, or you needed to learn and have a programming background, it's all done for you. It's all plug and play. And again, no programming necessary to get up quick and running, or get up quickly and start running. That is a basic flow down below there, and we'll get into more of that. So what can you control with Node-RED? So basically anything that's got an input or output: Ethernet, serial, USB, RS432, basically anything that it has an input or output. So what does that include in the ham shack? Radios, amplifiers, tuners, rotors, antenna switches, relays, antenna disconnects, basically anything. Power supplies, we can put a relay on it that turns the power on and off whenever you just leave the power supply on, and basically control it from the connection at the wall. And it was Node-RED was originally programmed to talk to home automation devices, IoT devices. So that's where it got its start. We just migrated into the ham radio shack, and the guys at IBM who designed this, they got a hold of the they found out that we were doing shack control about 6 or 8 months ago, and they were blown away. They're just like, we had no idea that you could do that. So they were pretty impressed. Weather stations too. If it's got an input or output, you can probably get some data from it. So why use Node-RED? So what I will do is, everyone close your eyes and put yourself in front of your shack, and you're on 40 meters, and it's late at night, and let's say you're working some DX and you're running CW, and you notice that the JAs have come alive on 20 meters in the middle of the night. You're tired, and they're on single sideband, and you need a certain JA. What are all the things that you would do to tune your radio, your amplifier, your rotator, to tune to work that JA? What happened? Wouldn't it be great if you could press one button on your screen and all of those things would happen, and you could change bands, you could change modes, you could tune your amplifier, you could tune your rotator, or turn your rotator and point it to JA with one click of a button? That's what Node-RED can do, basically. It is just one location where you can control everything in your shack. Your eyes don't have to leave your keyboard and your screen. You have total control of your shack from one location. You can also get real-time feedback from devices. So you can, instead of having an SWR meter on your, or looking at your radio, you can be looking at your screen and see the SWR for your radio. You can see if what your tuner plates are set to. You can see all of those pieces of information in real time on your screen without looking at the device. Can integrate non-ham radio devices into your shack. Let's say you've got a light that you're on air or something. You can integrate that. One of the cool things that you can do for remote stations in your station at home is you can put a weather node in there, and you give it your location, and it will send you an alarm if there is lightning or there is bad weather in your area, so you can turn your shack off remotely or do whatever you need. Go downstairs, disconnect the antennas. You don't have to look and be active weather spotters, for your area to know if the weather is coming in. It can automatically give you that information. And then one thing that I'm doing a little bit of work for the ARRL is radio for blind hams. And one of the things that we are doing is trying to figure out how we can do more audio and visual, or more audio notifications whenever things are out of spec. So maybe SWR, the temp of your amplifier, or maybe the temp of the radio, the power output. There's only a few radios on the market that allow modules to be plugged into to get some of those parameters out. Kenwood is one that does a really good job. But what if you wanted an ICOM or a Flex and you wanted to know if your SWR was high? Well, Flex doesn't announce that natively, but Node Red can. So some things that we're trying to do for smaller community. So this is kind of like the creme de la creme of dashboards here. So this is a Flex Radio dashboard that you can see the Flex Radio interface, SDR, smart SDR at the bottom here. Over here on the left-hand side, you've got a Flex control box that has some basic information, what the VFO is tuned to, what mode you're in, what the power is set to. So just some general information. Here is a Power Genius, which is their amplifier. And you can see it's got the forward power, SWR, the temperature, the harmonic load, gives some other information about, what band A and what band B is set to. You can set the fan speed control. So I'm sure that there's probably medium or slow, medium, and fast. Maybe, I'm not really sure. But all of your amplifier stuff, all of your tuner Genius information. So that's their tuner for high output. So you've got some peak outputs, some SWR meters here. It gives you your C1, your C2, and your L values. You can connect different radios. Here's your tune button. Again, gives your frequency and what state you're in. Here is another antenna Genius. So it looks like it might be continue of the tuner Genius. Or no, this is the antenna Genius. This is the antenna switch. So you can choose whatever antenna you want. Looks like he's got a couple of antennas. Here are some meters. So the input voltage, the PA voltage, the fan speed, the PA temp. Here is a microphone input and the levels for your microphone. This next one is a really cool map here. This is an SVG graphic, and it's an interactive graphic. So what it does is basically you click on where you want your antenna pointing, and it moves your rotator to wherever you click on the map. So if you want to work, JAs, or if you want to work EAs over here, you click on EA, and it'll automatically rotate your rotator and point it that way. Here's some power switch stuff. So I think that he's got some more rotator stuff here, but looks like he's got some presets. Here is the digital loggers web switch, which basically is just 8 AC switches. I've got one sitting right over here. Maybe I'll turn the camera over here, but it is a device that plugs into Ethernet and plugs into power, and then it's got 8 switchable relays that you can turn AC on and off through those switchable relays. So he's got some different things that he's turning on and off. Some host pings. Looks like he's got a, can you ping your Flex? Can you ping your PC, a Raspberry Pi, the internet? Yeah, and then obviously the Flex radio screen. So this is Dave DeCoon's setup right here. He's kind of the master of Node-RED, but this is kind of some of the stuff that you can program. I'm just going to go through these others real fast. Here's some square buttons. You've got some meters here. Here's some switches that you can put in, some just buttons that you can click. And you can see that all of these are different colors. So whenever you click a button, you can change the color from, whatever color you want from off to on. All of that stuff is configurable. This was my dashboard maybe a year ago before I reconfigured it. So that's an old dashboard that I have. So you can see the different groups and the different sections that you put together to form different groups of dashboard nodes. Here is Mike Walker, VA3MW. He's the founder, one of the founders of the Node-RED Groups IO. We'll get more into that. It doesn't have to be radio control. Here is propagation. You can pull propagation maps into it. You can put a geochron map on it. Here's some weather that I've pulled into a dashboard node. Here's something that I've been working on. This basically pulls in all of the cluster spots from a bunch of different clusters and aggregates them into one telnet. So I've got just a regular cluster. I've got CW skimmer spots. I've got some County Hunter, and this is Ham Alert. So I do some filtering on Ham Alert. Digital spots. I was doing the Missouri QSO cluster. Here's POTA spots, and this box was some other filtered spots. But so I narrow all of those down into one telnet server that I can connect to on my Node-RED and grab all of those spots. So I don't have to have like 10 telnet sessions open. I can narrow them all down to one telnet. Here's my contest dashboard that I've been working on. This pairs up with N1MM and a couple of other loggers, and basically shows you your contest and your QSOs in real time. So it's whenever you make a QSO, send it to the database. I do a bunch of queries on the database and display it in this this dashboard format. It's good for multi-ops, but I also configured it for single operators too. So I'm working with the online scoreboard guys to kind of integrate this into their database. So let's take a quick example here. So this is the Digital Web Loggers Pro, and you can see that it's got 8 relays or 8 receptacles here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then these 2 are always on. So these are all switchable, so you can turn these on and off. This is the flow to basically control this device with this dashboard. So we start the flow over here on the left-hand side. We get the status. We split some information, and we parse some information, and then we split it again into individual relays. And then these dashboard nodes where it says outlet 1, outlet 2, outlet 3 correspond with these outlets here. And then we push it back into the switch. So you can see that controlling this switch and this flow is out on the Groups IO website. It's only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Let's say this is 8, 9, 10, 11 nodes, 11 things that you need to drag in and do a little bit of configuration, and you're up and running. So pretty simple compared to maybe what it was many years ago to configure this. Here's some other examples with the dash doing some Raspberry Pi status. So here, let's take this CPU temperature. So it's a gauge here, so you can see it's a half moon. So basically, we're starting this flow with a timestamp, and this is the top flow here. So this is getting the pi temp from directly from the pi. We're doing some conversion, maybe splitting this out with a grep command, and then doing some conversion. Maybe we're taking it from Celsius to Fahrenheit, and then we're outputting that into this gauge, and this is a dashboard node, and displaying that on the dashboard in Node-RED. So basically, this CPU temperature node basically displays this value right here, and this CPU temperature displays. Let's see what it probably displays this one right here. So you're probably asking, what is a node? A node is basically the building block of Node-RED. There's a whole slew of different nodes out there. There's nodes that you can download from the internet. There's nodes that come directly native to Node-RED. So we're going to go over 3 just basic nodes here that you might find on a default install. Timestamps are basically, they start a flow. They inject something on a timestamp. They inject something every second, every minute, every hour, constantly. That is your basic start place where you start kind of programming with Node-RED. Whenever you drag this over to the palette and you start a new flow, you can double click on this timestamp and it comes up with a configuration page. And this is where you can configure the parameters of all of your nodes. Message payload, this is a debug node, so you can attach these debug nodes to any node within Node-RED and get some information out of it. And of course, it's got a configuration screen. So the default payload that comes across and goes between all of the nodes, it's called message payload, message.payload. And that's kind of like the default piece of information that I'm passing from node to node, so it can communicate from one node to another. And then we got a switch node. So a switch node is kind of like a big if then else statement. So a piece of information comes in, and if it equals some of that information, which you configure down here in this configuration window, if it equals some of that, it goes out the right-hand side. If it doesn't equal any of that, the flow stops. Kind of simple as that. So let's take a look at a sample flow that is pretty basic here. So remember, we had that timestamp node. So what we're going to do is we're going to start this flow, and we're going to inject a timestamp every minute. Okay. So every minute, this node is going to fire off at the top of the minute, or at 00. So let's say we want to go get some information from a website. So we're going to go do a HTTP request and grab some information from a website. And let's say that information is data that is in Celsius degrees. Okay. So then we're going to convert Celsius to Fahrenheit. So that's what this node is doing. And this was probably a unit conversion node that you say, hey, I want to convert some temperature, and input is Celsius, and I want to output Fahrenheit. And then it gets passed. So the Fahrenheit degrees gets passed out of that node, and we're going to do a switch node that we just had in the last example. And let's say if that data equals, let's say 100 degrees Fahrenheit. And if it equals 100 degrees Fahrenheit, we're going to pass it on. If it doesn't equal 100 degrees Fahrenheit, the flow is going to stop. And then the next minute, it's going to re-trigger, and it's going to send that information on and see if it's 100 degrees. So let's say the information is 100 degrees. Then we're going to come into a change node, and we're going to change that message payload that's been flowing from node to node. We're going to change that to make it equal a string, and we're going to say running hot. And then out of that change node, you can break this out into many different nodes and split it, up to, I think, 250 slices or outputs here connected to one node at one time. But here we've got three nodes that are connected. We've got a debug node, and you can see there's other debug nodes on these other these nodes here. But we've got a debug node here. We've got a table dashboard node that it's going to display some data in the dashboard. So it's going to display the word running hot in the dashboard in a table. But then also we created, let's say, a TCP port, and it's running on 7300, and we're going to shoot that out to like maybe another Pi or something, and we're going to shoot that out to a specific IP on port 7300. So all of that stuff can be done in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 nodes, 7 nodes, somewhere around there. And that's how you get data in and out of Node-RED and parsing data from whatever device you've got. So we talked about the debug node, and that debug node has got some properties. So this is the properties from the debug node, and we're going to get into a little bit of the dashboard, but you can see that there's some debug information whenever this is a sidebar over here, and I'm going to show you the sidebar. But in the sidebars where all your debug information gets posted. So as information comes into the debug node, it just automatically gets displayed on the sidebar, and you can see whatever that node is getting, passed, input, output. So it's a very useful tool to say, I'm not getting what I'm expecting to getting. So you put some debug nodes and say, oh, I'm not getting the information that I expect because I'm not passing the right input, or whatever the case may be. So where to start? Node-RED.org. That's where you start. There is a ton of good videos out there on the introduction of Node-RED. If you've got programming experience, that's probably the place to start, because they get into the weeds pretty quick. But there's a ton of documentation on this documentation tab there, or link. There's also a great forum. I've asked a bunch of questions on the forum, and there's a lot of helpful people out there. There's default flows. So if you're looking for, I guarantee you, not maybe in the ham radio space, but if you're looking to do something specialized, maybe you got something that you want to do at home and you want to automate something, at your house, I bet you anything somebody has made a flow and put it out there on the internet. It might not be exactly what you need, but it's probably got something to get you started. So node-red.org is where you want to go. Resources. So this node-red.org page is great. The YouTube channel, they've got a YouTube channel out there you might want to take a look at. This Opto Video, industrial automation, has got some really good information. There's Node-RED on Reddit, but here's the mecca here to kind of get started. The Groups.io page for ham radio. That is where we all hang out. That's where everything gets talked about. There's a bunch of good wikis on how to install Node-RED on a Raspberry Pi. I've got a bunch of videos on my channel on how to get started in Node-RED, to install Node-RED on a Raspberry Pi. Since I have Pis, so I kind of default to all of our default to Pi stuff. So go out there and join the Groups.io Node-RED for ham radio group, and you'll start making friends real fast. So now let me get into, so I'm piecing some of this stuff together, so you have to forgive me here. So we're going to do some dashboard stuff. And a lot of this stuff is the same stuff. It's kind of a part 1 and part 2. So how to install Node-RED. If you go out to my YouTube channel, I did a very, very basic but informative video on how to install Node-RED on a Raspberry Pi. I basically did everything from getting the image installed on an SD card, to getting the interface up on the back or on the the configuration part, the palette, and getting you up and running and importing your first flow. So I would start there. Start with the wiki, maybe on the groups IO, and start there. So what is a dashboard? And this is where this is the business end of Node-RED. So basically, the dashboard is the command and control website, and it's a website. That's all it is. It runs on your Raspberry Pi, but you access it through a website. So any web browser can bring up the interface that you program in and the dashboard that you actually click on and get information in and out of. So all of these groups, you can see there's a Raspberry Pi and status control group. There's a power switch and miscellaneous group, flex power, web relay. All of those sections are called groups, okay? So one of the first things you're going to do after you get your Raspberry Pi up and running through the wiki or my website or on my YouTube channel is you want to install some dashboard nodes. So you're going to click on this hamburger menu and you're going to go down to Manage Palette. So this is up in the upper right-hand corner. Go down to Manage Palette. You're going to search for some default nodes. And this is where you install default nodes off the internet. And this is how you search for nodes that people have already programmed and put out there for users like you and I to install. So you come down here to install, and you click on dashboard, and this is where you're going to install the first nodes for your default dashboard. Okay. So this dashboard is where all of the nodes, the dashboard nodes are located at. So there's a couple of ways you can get to it. Up here in the corner, there's a dashboard node. And then you can also, there's a drop down, and if it's not there, you can go down here and click on dashboard. So this is, where's your dashboard located at? So it's the IP of your Node-RED install. So let's say your Raspberry Pi is 192.168.1.100, and it's colon port 1880/UI, and that will get you to this dashboard page here. You can also get to it through your palette manager, the place where you're programming your flows, and you can get to it from this icon here. And then you click on I call it the yeet button. I don't know what it's called, but it's got that square with the arrow out. So here are your basic dashboard nodes. Your dashboard nodes are in this teal color, and then you can see the programming interface here, and then here are your sidebars. So this is where your debug node and some other information is located at. Okay. So every dashboard node has got a configuration built into it. So whenever you configure like your gauge, you can give it, all right, I want a gauge here. Here's my temperature or their label. So you can see that CPU, oh, sorry guys, CPU temperature. So this is where CPU temperature comes out. The value format, this is your default payload, your units in Fahrenheit. So you can see that F right there. And then you can kind of give it a min and a max. Where your sectors are located, and then it gradually turns from green to yellow to red based on the value that you pass it. Okay, and I think I'm gonna do a demo here just to kind of show you guys what I'm talking about. So you can see that we've got all of these different groups here, and they're labeled Raspberry Pi, status and control, power switch, flex. So you can look on your dashboard control panel, and you can see the same things that are located or stacked here: Raspberry Pi status, power switch, miscellaneous, flex power, web relay. That all lines up with all of these different groups. So that's how you put all of these dashboard nodes into these groups. And then there's also, let's keep going here. So then there's these tabs here. And you can see this E-layer command and control, E-layer command and control. There's a there's a hamburger menu up here. And if you click on this hamburger menu, it drops down to the different tabs. So if I had clicked on this hamburger menu, I will see some more tabs that say Radio B, Shack Control, DX Cluster, FR Stack, Slices, and Camera Feed. Okay. Oh, here it is right here. So you click on this hamburger menu and you can see the different tabs here, and that lines up with the kind of the parents of these groups that were in the previous tab. Okay. Let's keep going here. So again, every node, every dashboard node, remember the dashboard nodes are teal. Every dashboard node has got some parameters, and you double click on these guys and they show up with different parameters, and you can configure those. It's a little bit more advanced here, adding tabs and groups. So of course you can add tabs and you can add groups with your different dashboards. So it's got a tab add and it's got a group add. So as you make more and more dashboard nodes, you can add those tabs and groups. And then this is more of a GUI interface. Let me get down to this and I'll show you. So this is how you arrange your dashboard nodes inside of your groups. So remember in that example, I had those gauges. So this is a CPU temp gauge and a memory use gauge. And I had that chart. We didn't really talk about the chart, but you can probably remember I had a CPU chart. So all of these dashboard nodes they take up space, and you can say a dashboard node is 2x2, it's 4x4, it's 8x8. You can give it different sizes, and then whenever you give it a different size, you can basically drag and drop these dashboard nodes and configure them wherever you want to in your group, so they all line up. So that's how you configure all of these dashboard nodes, and you can see all of these are in a line. These are in a line. These are in a line. So this is how you configure all of your dashboard nodes to make them look pretty. So here's a good example. Let's take a look at this one over here on the right hand side. So you've got this is just an extract of that GUI interface. So you've got weather e-layer. So this group is called weather e-layer. And I've got a text box that displays the weather here. So that lines up with this. Weather details is text. So it's showing me that it's overcast clouds. Then I've got this wind direction gauge. That's a 360-degree gauge. Here's that gauge that takes up this space. Here's wind speed with that half moon gauge. It takes up that amount of space. Outside temp is a text box, and it's 1 by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 across. Oh, I could have got that from here. So width is 6. So it's 1 by 6. And then here's this chart that I had configured. So here's the chart, and it takes up 1, 2, 3, 4 by 6 units. And then this weather LED is one unit tall by 6 wide, and then shut down if thundered. Paul and I were talking about this. If the weather gets close, go ahead and shut down the station. So you can see how you kind of pull things into these groups and configure them so they look pretty, and they're logically arranged the way that you want them to be arranged. All right, so that's that one. So let's get into, I'm going to show you some 192.168.1. Which one should I go to? Should I go to, let's do 115. I've got many stuff, many pies running here at the QTH. So this is some flows that I put together that map POTA stations, and I'll show you the interface. So as we're tying everything together that I showed you, over here on the left-hand side is your palette, and these are all of the nodes that I have either loaded. They came default with the default install on my Raspberry Pi, or I have gone over here to the hamburger menu, and I clicked on that, and I came down here to manage palette, and then I went to install, and this is where you can search for, let's just search for temperature. So whenever I click on or I search for temperature, you can see all of these different nodes pop up that have a small description of what they do. And I can click on this install button and I can install that node directly over on my palette. And that's how I install different nodes that do different things from the internet. Okay. So I've got different groups. I've got some subflows. I've got some a common group, and all of these groups are created for you. And you could see whenever I hovered over one, it kind of gave me a help pop up, and each one of these has got a help file. So you can let's go to debug. So if I hover over the debug, and then I come down here to this library or this book menu, it's going to pull over in my sidebar kind of some more information about each node. Okay. In the previous slides, this sidebar, this sidecar, it's got some different icons up here, and they do different things. So this is just some information about all of your flows. It's got the I for information. Here is some more help. This is where we were at before. This is if you want to sync all this to GitHub. That's you can sync, set up a GitHub account and sync all of your flows to GitHub. This bug is where you'd see all the debug information I was telling you about. Here is my dashboard. So hopefully this looks familiar. Here is a tab, and then here's a tab, this configuration tab, and then the groups underneath. This tab, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 groups here. And then if I click on here, here's the actual dashboard configuration nodes that I have grouped under the general stats group, which is then nested under the POTA dashboard group. Here is some back-end configuration. If you've got some database stuff, you'll see it here. I really don't mess a lot with this. And then here are global context parameters. So if you define global parameters, if you're into networking, if you're into programming, this is where you would set some global parameters, some flow parameters, and maybe some node parameters. Here is where you do all the business. So you can see that, let's say I'm going to drag an inject node over. See how it just popped up over there? And then I can do whatever I want to this inject node or this timestamp node. I double clicked on that, and you could see the parameters came up for this timestamp node. And what I'm doing is I can remove this, and I'm going to say message payload. Remember, message payload is the default payload that you're passing from node to node. I'm going to make that equal to a timestamp, which is that, was it epoch, whatever it is. I can't remember how to pronounce it, but it's the Unix timestamp. You can set this to a number. So let's set this to 10. You can set this to true or false. So basically you can set this to anything to start to inject into your flow to get it started. If you don't want to just inject a timestamp. So there's lots of parameters there. And then here at the top is where you can configure different flows. So you can have many flows in one tab. This is just for your and mine organization that makes everything a little bit more manageable, to kind of group flows together that do similar things. And you can make as many tabs you want up here to help you, not go crazy. So this is the control interface. After you're done with your flows, you come up here and you hit the deploy button. The deploy button is what actually triggers and starts the flow. Okay. If you have any compilers, they will display over here in the debug node. Oh, I've got a Discord error. Use token unavailable client. Yep. So I'm pushing some stuff to Discord. But anyway, if you got any errors, this is where the errors are going to pop up. You see an error right there. So then after you are done deploying and everything looks good and you want to take a look to see what your dashboard looks like. So this instance is running on 192.168.1.115 and my port is a default port, which is 1880. So what I'm going to do, and remember the UI is at /UI at the back of that. So I'm going to go to 192.168.1.115 :1880/UI. And that's going to bring up, hopefully it's not going to make me a liar here. It's going to bring up the interface. Now, here I need to probably back this down a little bit. There it looks a little bit better. So this is hopefully going to come up. Come on, don't make me a liar. Yep. All right. So this is mapping out all of the active POTA spots. Everyone that is activating POTA right now is being shown on this map. Okay. Everybody that's not QRT. So you can come in here and I've got some up here in the top. I've got just some gauges. So there's 45 active spots right now, 19 of them on 40 meters, 19 on 20 meters, none on 15 meters, 2 on 10 meters. Then I've broken this out by mode. So there's 30 SSB, 5 CW, 9 FT8 or FT4. And then this map is just a drop-in, and it grabs the information from the JSON data that I pull off of the Spots app and just maps it on this map. And I just give it a pin based on what Did you hear that? No, didn't hear that. Okay. So it announced, I don't know why it's the sound didn't come through. Sorry for the delay there, or for me pausing, but the program was announcing somebody that I programmed in KE8PZN. It just announced audibly this POTA spot. So I've got a database running that it's basically my own little ham alert. So all of my friends who activate POTA, I put them into these into a database, and if it comes up on the POTA, it announces and also sends me a text message to say that that person is activating. But anyway, so this is all of the active POTA spots in the world, and then here it just lists them. You got to put so I've done some like distance away. I've got to put my my QTH in here, but just frequency, mode, call, location, park number, park name, comment. That is initial spot time, latitude, longitude, how many times they've been spotted, and when that spot is going to expire. So some cool stuff that you can do that is ham radio related, but not radio related. You know, you don't have to have a, you don't even have to have a ham radio to do some of this stuff. And it's not. So one of the other things that I wanted to make sure that everyone understood was this is not flex centric. Everyone thinks that you can only run Node-RED if you only have a flex. That is totally not true. We have a lot of people in the group that have cracked the ICOM interface. Kenwood is easy. Elecraft is easy. ICOM is a little difficult, but there is flows out there for most of the ICOM radios. And Yaesu is a little difficult, but there are some Yaesu radios out there that that you can get some default flows. One other thing is you don't have to start from scratch. There are hundreds of flows out there for the amateur radio community that you can go and you can import. And let me show you how to import these. So if I go back to my palette here, I can click on this hamburger menu and I can go to import. And whenever you click on the import command, it's going to ask you to import a flow. So what you can go, you download a JSON file that's got all the parameters on how you import different flows into, or it's got all of the information in that JSON file, and you just basically go to your computer and you select the file, and it's going to import that file into this box here, and you hit import, and it imports. Now you might have to do you might have to configure it, make an IP a change or do a little bit of configuration, but most of the flows out there that people have put for ham radio use, they've scrubbed them good enough that and put some good information that these are the 4 things that you need to do after you import that flow, and it's pretty self-explanatory. So let's see what else. Could maybe do a run through of my contesting dashboard. Here's a cool graphic of like what can you control. So this is kind of how it all comes together. So you've got power, so you can connect that up to that digital loggers device that I was talking about, and just leave your amp or your power supply on, and just control it at the receptacle. So then you got your radio, your amp, your tuner, your coax disconnect. These Paradan radio disconnects are awesome. So basically what happens is when you turn your amp on, when you turn your power on, these things latch and unlatch based on if they have power or not. 12 volts of power. If they have 12 volts of power, they latch, and it's an antenna latch. It's an antenna switch. If whenever it unlatches, it goes to ground, and then you've got a ground lug in here. And the guy who designed these also said that there is a lightning arrestor built into these things. I have not cracked one open to verify that, but he says that there's a lightning arrestor in it, and you've got your ground lug. And this is great to connect and disconnect your antennas during a storm or whenever they're not in use. I have 2 of these at my remote station. That's how I get away from connecting, or that's how I disconnect and connect my antennas whenever there's a storm around. You've got antenna switches, rotators. This KM-Tronics board is really great. It's got 8 relays, and you plug in an Ethernet port, and all of these relays are controlled by Ethernet. So if you got something that you want to control via relay, this KM-Tronics is a great device. This USR N540 is a really good RS-232 to Ethernet converter if you want one of those. And some bandpass filters. So all of this stuff is controllable by Node-RED through USB, serial, Ethernet, input, output, and it all communicates to a Raspberry Pi. More stuff that I go through. Talked about SVG elements. So you can basically take any SVG graphic and make it clickable and put some parameters around it. Here's a more advanced version of like a clamp and a base and an arm and a gate, and all of this stuff is clickable, and it moves whenever you click it. So therefore it's showing like in real time what the device is doing. It's really cool. So you can interact with this with the Node-RED with Chrome, Firefox, Safari, Internet Explorer, or Edge. Works on Raspberry Pi, Mac. You can connect different things to it. So you've got a MIDI controller. Here's just a knob that probably does MIDI. Also, one of these numeric keypads. You can even interact with the Raspberry Pi and control different aspects. These Elgato Stream Decks, I've got one of these right here that looks like that, and it's basically gamers have. It was designed for gamers to basically change parameters on their stream in real time, and all of these little buttons are LEDs. So they can be programmed to whatever you want, and they can change values whenever you press them. So a 6 button is $80, a 15 button is $150. So this is a 15 that I've got, and basically it can talk to Node-RED, so you can program these buttons on this Elgato Stream Deck to say, all right, I want you to point to JA, or control your rotor, or control the power on your tuner. I'm sorry, the power on your amp, or turning your tuner on and off. It's whatever you can do in Node-RED and make it a button click. You can program that on the Stream Deck. So this is some things that some people have put icons that they have made on their Stream Deck. And they just came out with this, Elgato came out with this foot pedal. And I think I'm going to get one, and I like to contest. So instead of having, going and taking your hands off the home row keys whenever you're doing keyboard shortcuts for N1MM, if you've got 3 foot pedals, you can basically program the different foot pedals to do different focus and different key commands that you always do in N1MM, so your fingers never have to be taken off the home row keys on your keyboard. So I'm going to start doing that. Actually, I'm going to order it this weekend. More groups IO. Here's my training series on my YouTube page. If you just go to my website, AA0.com, it's going to go directly to my YouTube page. So here's the video series that Paul was talking about: Raspberry Pi prep work, installing Node-RED on a Raspberry Pi, your first flow, installing nodes and importing flows. We did an example of that digital loggers web power switch. We kind of broke that down node by node. I did some common nodes that, your switch node, your change node, debug, did some in-depth analysis of those nodes, and then also did a Q&A. So, and then here's the dashboard stuff that I was working on. So this is, if you're a big contester, you can configure broadcast data in N1MM, and basically it shoots this XML data out, and I pull all that XML data out and I stick it into a database. And then this is the front page. So this is like your home screen, where it has your map of all your QSOs, your current QSO that you just worked, some time from your last QSOs, and then radio information. So let's say you got a couple of radios in your shack. It's going to tell you where all your radios are at. And then here's another screen, another radio information screen. It tells you where all the radios are at and what frequency, and if they're searching and pouncing, or if they're running, and their current Q rate. This screen I've been working on for quite a while. So whenever you work a multi-op, one of the things, you compete against other operators, around the world, United States, wherever you're competing, for. But there's not really any way that you can compete operator to operator inside your multi-op. So I created this screen, and you can see that there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people in this multi-op, and they're all competing against one another. So it's basically a game within a game. Here's some online scoreboard integration. If you're familiar with the online scoreboard, it's you can put your call in there, and it'll pull down your call, and then it will track the same people in your section, or you can define who you want to chase, and it basically does some calculations. Here's some online streaming screens. So the ARL just opened that unlimited section that you can enter in, and you can stream. So I decided to put some streaming scoreboard or dashboards in here. Here's some reverse beacon network things I'm working on. It's Raspberry Pi monitor, and here's how you configure all your items for your dashboard. So if you want to know more about the contesting dashboard, you can just type in contesting dashboard in GitHub. You can download it there. You can go to the Node-RED groups for IO for ham radio site. It's on there too. Yeah, that is about it. that was 3 presentations in about an hour. So all of that information is either on my YouTube channel or on the internet somewhere. So if you want some of these slides, just email me. I can email the slides. If you want to talk about Node-RED and what it can do and have any more questions, you can email me. I'm good on QRZ, or we can do a Zoom chat. Doesn't really matter. But yeah, that was an hour and 56 minutes brain dump of Node-RED. I think I went through every single slide that I've ever created on Node-RED. So,
well, thank you very much. That was a lot of information, but yeah, just remember this is, it's as simple or as complex as you want it to be.
Right. So the key here, this is the whole key of the whole presentation. Start slow. Start to crawl. Get your Node-RED interface, your Raspberry Pi up and running. Get familiar with that. Then start to walk. Load some flows, import some flows, get familiar with the interface. Maybe make your own easy, your timestamp in a debug node and deploy that. Then start to run. And don't start off like a lot of people do in the groups IO, and they dive into it and they're just like, I loaded these 20 flows and now nothing works. What's happening? You're just like, oh no, hang on. Let's start from square one. So crawl, walk, run.
Very good. All right. Anybody have any questions?
Yeah, AA0Z. This is November 9, Mike Romeo. Nice to meet you.
N9 MMR. You're 5'9".
Excellent. 5'9" as well. Yeah, awesome presentation and awesome YouTube videos. Keep them up because we've been watching. Tavis here, KD9NSC. He's my son. He's 11. He's a tech.
Hey, Tavis.
Say hi, Tav. He's got to figure out his.
Hello, I have no idea if my audio interface is working.
It is.
It is. Okay, good.
You're a strong 5'9".
Picked up a new audio interface over at Hamvention, so he's all wired up now.
Very good.
But yeah, this is awesome. We've been talking about exploring Node-RED. We have half a dozen or so Raspberry Pis at the house that we run different stuff on. The contest dashboard that links in with N1MM, is that available?
Yeah, you can go download it right now on GitHub. Yep.
Joe N9TAX, I think he has our license for N1MM we used it last year in field day. It worked out awesome.
Dude, it's not N1MM. It's another software.
Oh, he has another one? Okay. But
that's N3FJP.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah.
That's what he used. Okay. I love the map with all the locations. That was awesome.
Yeah. So I contest down at Ward's N0AX, and so he didn't know I was bringing this down to, I think it was sweepstakes last January, or they all run together, or sweepstakes in November. Anyway, I can't remember. Yeah, sweepstakes is in November. And so I brought this down to him, and I'm setting it up, and he goes, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Oh, I got a contest dashboard that I've done in Node-RED." And he was like, "Oh, okay." And I fired it up, and the first couple of contacts, I think drool was coming out of his mouth. He was so amazed at it. So then what he did was, I went in a contest for a couple hours, and I came back out, and this was sitting on the kitchen table, and he had pulled his lazy boy into the kitchen, and he had his feet propped up. He was on his phone, and he was watching this like it was, ESPN.
Yeah.
So at that point, I kind of knew, I'm like, I think I might be onto something. So we talked a little bit, and this, the different screens were born. But yeah, this contest dashboard has kind of taken off, and there's a lot of things that I'd like to do, but Paul and I were talking about this before the meeting. Time is your enemy, and there's a lot of things I like to do that I don't know how to do, and I know the questions to ask, but I just don't have I don't have the time to actually go out and do the research on how to do these things because I don't have any time, you know. So, but yeah, the contest dashboard is totally free. It's out on the GitHub. It integrates with N1MM and WriteLog and RumLog. Those are the only three programs that have integrated with it. N3FJP, I've contacted that guy and said, hey, I've got this product that I'd like to integrate. And he goes, yeah, let's talk. And that was as far as it got.
Gotcha. Now, what about the POTA dashboard?
POTA dashboard is, yeah, it is out on my GitHub too. Yep.
Awesome.
Yep.
Awesome.
So if you just, so my GitHub, let's see. Let's see. So if you, yeah, if you just type in my name into GitHub, Kyle, K-Y-L-E, Krieg, K-R-I-E-G, you'll find my GitHub, and it's got the county testing dashboard and the POTA dashboard out there.
Very cool.
Yep. All in JSON file. All you have to do is download it and you're ready to go.
Love it. I'm
Yep.
excited to start playing with this. This is great.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm also asking people to like play with it and do your own programming. And if you find something cool that you've done and you want to share it with us and share it with the community, let's put a branch out there and fork it and see if it's you know, let's integrate it into the master document or the master branch, and you know, let's make this a community thing. I have no issues, which is like, this is mine, you should not, you know, program. Let's make this a community thing.
Sounds good. And you're as far as emailing you, QRZ,
Yeah,
all out there? Okay, cool.
yep, it's all out there.
Awesome. Because I'm sure we'll have questions, and if you see emails from KD9NSC or myself, then you'll know.
Yeah, yeah, totally. Yep.
Very cool.
This is right up your alley.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Love it. This is good stuff. It's yeah. Unfortunately, Raspberry Pis are a little hard to come by right now.
Yeah.
You go to Hamvention, you can pick up some Dell servers for $25 each. So
Yeah. I saw a bunch of servers. You know, one thing that I'd like to do with the dashboard is, you know, whenever you do multi-ops, right, you're competing as a group, right? And it's one score. What if we could get to a point where we are competing with you know, with inside a multi-op, but you're also competing. Hang on, there's somebody with a hot mic here.
I'm muted.
You're also competing individually too, right?
Yeah, I like that idea. Yeah, you have the competition going amongst everybody that's sitting in the same room there, or the same tent in field day or something.
Right. But what if you're competing against your buddies, you know, that were in the same multi-op as not you, but, you know, let's say I'm down at Wards at N0X and I've got, you know, some buddies that are contesting the K9CTs, you know, we could compete with one another, and CJ's up at K9CTs, and I'm like, crap, he just you know, flew by me with the points. Get off the radio. I want to get on the radio so I can, you know, catch up to CJ, you know?
Yep. Very cool.
So hopefully I'm going to work with the contest online scoreboard guys and maybe bring this into like an API and shoot this up, and maybe we can put together another dashboard that has like a conglomerate of scores for multi-op people that want to compete individually also. So I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. No, I think it's cool. This is great.
Yeah. All right. Anybody else have any questions? Jen, you got anything? All right. Well, then I'm going to go ahead and say thank you very much, Kyle. And this was fascinating. And for those who couldn't make it tonight, we'll have it up on my YouTube channel so they can catch up on it. And definitely, if you want to learn more about this, I belong to the Groups IO list, and like I'm just at the very bottom of starting, and there's a lot to learn from those guys, and a lot of guys willing to help you with a phone call or a Zoom session or anything to help you go. and you don't have to be freaked out by the level of what some of those guys are doing, because it's anywhere from down here to some of those guys are just way above. So,
Yeah.
but it's definitely fun, and there's a lot that can be done with this. So, all right. Thank you, Kyle.
Thank you. Thank you for letting me present. And again, if you got any questions or comments or whatnot, just shoot them my way. And or you can get on the groups IO. Like Paul said, there's a ton of great people out there that would love to help. And it's a great group. I have yet to, I mean, we've got over, I think, 1,500 members, and I don't think we've had a squabble yet. So I think we're good.
No, not at all. So, all right. And I will see you in the morning.
Yes. Bright and early.
Bright and early. All right. Have a good evening. Thank you,
Okay.
Kyle.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye-bye.
All right. Okay.